What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. All right, so one of the things I want to tackle today is this myth that LeBron is one of the all-time Methuselahs, that he's an Iron Man. You know, you hear this a lot repeated by Nick Wright and Shannon Sharpe and some other paid and bought clutch pundits masquerading as analysts out here. You know, they say, oh, he's in year 23. And, we've never seen this type of production from anybody of his age, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And while he has had longevity, obviously, I mean, he's played in, I believe, over 1,500 games at this point. So no, that's not a falsehood as far as him playing a lot of games. But the manner in which he has played over the last several years, the low managing, the lack of defensive effort for the most part, okay, the play style, those things have to be mentioned. In addition to the fact that a lot of us, even though we don't have the absolute empirical proof, we have a lot of circumstantial evidence to suggest, a lot of it, a ton of it, to suggest that this guy is not doing everything on the up and up. Another thing that he's been able to do is stat pad. Okay, he's been able to stat pad to an excessive degree, and it's even gotten to the point where he's stat padding at the expense of the team. He often costs his team victories. The numbers bore that out, but because of the narratives out there, that gets ignored. So shout out to Apex Jones on X/Twitter. I saw this post on there, and I believe this is former NBA player Olden Polynice, who's been putting in a lot of work as far as exposing this guy LeBron James as being overrated. You know what I'm saying? Now, Olden Polynice, of course, was an NBA player from the 80s and early 80s into the 1990s, I think even the early 2000s. Played for various franchises. Definitely know he played for the Sonics for a while. But anyway, he was on All the Smoke podcast, and he talked about how LeBron James gets to put up numbers, because basically he's allowed to. He's never had to sacrifice like some of the other players who played as long as he has.
But at the same time, if you're playing any amount of minutes you want, you're going to do things. You're going to put up numbers.
So you're saying
Robert Parrish in his 22nd year was not allowed that opportunity to get the ball and score and everything else. So you got to factor all those things in.
Yes, I guess he was talking about the GOAT and all of that. And he's absolutely right. Wherever LeBron James has been able to play, he has been allowed to play a substantial amount of minutes. He's been able to take a substantial amount of shots and be the focal point of the offense for the most part everywhere he's been able to play. He doesn't know what the fuck sacrifice is. All the other Methuselahs, and by Methuselahs I mean players who played for a very long time, were good for a very long time, they all had to sacrifice. Even Karl Malone, his last year in the league, had to sacrifice with the Lakers and was not taking, 17, 18, 19, 20 shots a night anymore. You know what I'm saying? As he mentioned, Robert Parrish, who was never a selfish player anyway, he was no longer putting up 18 and 10 with, toward the latter part of his career with the Charlotte Hornets and then that last year with the Bulls. Vince Carter no longer a 20-point per game scorer for the end of his career. Some people might say, well, they weren't able to physically do that. But then that goes back to my original point. What makes LeBron James so obscenely and so ridiculously uh, above normalcy as far as human normal biology to be able to still play at the level he's been playing at, unless he's getting some type of help. I used to give LeBron James the benefit of doubt to an extent until the Kel Sonnen situation. When I saw Kel Sonnen twice on a major platform accuse this guy of using steroids, and he said nothing, that right there told me everything I needed to know about this guy. That told me everything I needed to know about him. So I want to mention another stat that Apex Jones put out there, and that is that LeBron James was the only All-NBA player from last year, and probably only All-NBA player for a long time, maybe, to have a negative plus minus for the season. Not for a game. Everybody has bad games. Not for a week, not even for a month, for the season. And he was by far had the worst plus minus differential of all NBA players last year. You may recall a couple of years ago when Carmelo Anthony, I think it was 2022-23, it might have been, or 2021-22, one of those years. Might be 2021-22. I think it was 2021-22. Carmelo Anthony had by far, even though he didn't take a lot of shots, and oftentimes he was frozen out offensively by LeBron James or Anthony Davis, right? Or maybe even Russell Westbrook at times. He had the best plus minus of all the players on that team. And it's interesting that he recently said that his most efficient season came when he played with the Lakers. And it wasn't because he was playing with LeBron James per se, although I do recall Russell Westbrook when he was on the floor with Carmelo Anthony, he would make it his business to try to get him the ball. He did that in spite of playing with LeBron James, who, by the way, had one of the worst plus minuses that year, even though he averaged 30 points per game. But anyway, shout out to Olden Polynice for speaking truth again. And tell me what you guys think.